The playful princess was taken prisoner by the enemy during the Battle of Jiao Fong. They asked to exchange hostages. Kuang then led the army and looked towards me. I am a woman disguised as a man, by my side, following Kuang then for more than 10 years. Joined him in life and death, achieving many victories. Only he knows that I am a woman. He also promised me his whole life, but when he saw the enemy's knife placed on the princess's neck, Kuang then was still very heartbroken. After returning the princess, I will come to save you. I was handed over by Kuang then himself into the enemy's hands. When the pond dike hit my neck, Kuang then hugged the escaped princess in his arms. I was dragged into the enemy camp, waiting day and night for Kuang then to come save me, but only waiting for the news that Kuang then was about to marry the princess. The two armies struggled. Dike Quan's blade was close to the princess's neck. They roared. It is rumored that this princess Chu Tan Noyat is the most precious queen of Chu Kingdom. If you want to save her life, then bring the prince to exchange for the princess. Fear, shaking all over, sobbing, weakness. Kuang then save me. General Kuang then, his expression was solemn. 3 days ago, the princess showed off her royal authority and went on a trip to the border. She didn't know where she heard the news that at the border there was a valley blooming with peonies from a foreign land, so she insisted on coming to enjoy the flowers. The generals in the army stopped her, and the princess was angry and cursed. You warriors, aren't you fighting so that this princess can go enjoy flowers there wherever she wants? Otherwise, what does it mean for you to win the battle? If you dare to stop, be careful, this princess will tell her father to cut down on your food and grass. At that time, Kuang then and I were inspecting the battle terrain. Not in the barracks, no soldiers in the barracks dared to disobey the princess. Therefore, the princess immediately led a few maids and guards to that valley near the border. She also brought along an artist who intended to have the artist draw for her a picture of the princess enjoying flowers among all the blooming flowers. While playing happily, suddenly from the flower bush, enemy soldiers ambushed her, killing all the maids, guards, and painters next to her. I just captured the princess alive. In today's battle, Kuang then and I were certain to win. No one expected that, at a critical moment, the enemy would capture the princess and bring her to the front of the battle, causing the entire army to temporarily stand still and the war to fall into a deadlock in the face of the opponent's unreasonable demands. Someone in the army shouted angrily, "How could a very noble prince take risks at the border?" The enemy general's eyes glanced at me. Isn't there already a prince here? Why is Kuang then also looking at me? When I was a child, my father abandoned me in the military camp and died on my own. Only by disguising as a man can one's reputation be maintained. Everyone in the military camp, even the civil and martial court, thought I was a prince. Only Kuang then knows that I am also a princess. However, compared to Chu Tan Noyat, who is loved by thousands of people, I, Chu Duyan, am just an unfortunate princess, carrying the sins of my mother's clan from birth. I followed Kuang then for more than 10 years, with him in life and death, and achieved many glorious victories. Only he knows I'm a girl. Under the moonlight of the border, he once promised me a lifetime. But when he saw the enemy's knife close to the princess's neck, Kuang then clearly showed pain. "If you return, princess, I will come to save you," he told me. Now there is no other way but to wrong you and use your status as a prince to deceive them. First, wait until the princess is safe. I will immediately come to save you. I raised my head to look at Kuang then. Is this a military order? Kuang then hesitated for a moment, then told me, "It's a military order." He used military orders to ask me to go in exchange for the princess's safety. I agree. It was Kuang then who personally delivered me to the enemy. The blade from Chu Tan Noyat's neck moved to my neck. The enemy general thought I was a man and acted even more cruelly. The blade cut a bloody line on my neck. When I was in pain, I saw Kwangmen holding the princess tightly in his arms. "General, I know that you can save me." The princess was like a little rabbit, frightened and hiding tightly in Kwangmen's arms, her body trembling and weak, making people feel sorry for her. Kwangmen hugged her compassionately. Perhaps his heart was disturbed by her crying, so that such a brave and decisive general missed the best opportunity to save me. By the time Kwangmen finished comforting the princess and remembered saving me, I was escorted into the barracks by the enemy. When I woke up again, my arms and legs were broken and I was thrown on the bed in the barracks. Alarm bells rang in my heart. I quickly lowered my head and looked down at my clothes. The hem of the shirt is still neat. I suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. But I felt my whole body weak, without any strength left. "Have you been drugged?" I glanced around the barracks. This is clearly the barracks of the general's master. Something's wrong. Why are there dragon totems everywhere? Rumor has it that Monarch Deep Quack himself went on an expedition this time. No way. The Barak tent was pulled out, and a rough voice rang out, "Your Majesty, the sixth prince who was exchanged for the princess has been made to drink puree and disintegrate and put to bed." I was trying to twist my body on the bed, when a tall shadow covered me. He was extremely handsome. There was a beautiful red mole at the corner of his eye, but his eyebrows exuded the majesty of a king. As he approached, a cold, unpleasant scent of sandalwood entered my nose. That fragrance came from the sandalwood rosary in his hand. Deep Binnen, the new emperor of Deep Quack, in less than 3 years on the throne, has swallowed up almost all the small countries that have violated the border. Every time a country is destroyed, the rosary in the new emperor's hand adds one more. Rumor has it that because he felt the punishment for destroying the nation was too heavy, he often held a rosary in the palm of his hand. Currently, that rosary has 17 beads. Chu Quack is the only remaining powerful nation that can oppose Deep Quack. But with just a little carelessness, it can become the 18th rosary in the hands of this new emperor. You. Don't come here. Deep Binnen used his right hand to wrap the rosary, grabbed my chin, squinted his eyes and looked at me inquisitively. You stutter. I react extremely quickly. Deep Binnen smiled softly. "Kwangmen abandoned you for the princess. How does it feel?" "I trained in the army for many years. After the two countries went to war, I immediately became the military advisor behind Kwangmen, on the front or on the battlefield. I have fought with Deep Binnen many times, and it is not true that I am afraid of him, but today was the first time I faced him at such a close distance and was drugged. I couldn't help but feel a little scared. I only know that before Kwangmen came to save me, my status as a prince was my only protective umbrella. Even if he is a disgraced prince in an enemy country, he can still live temporarily as a hostage. But if he discovered that I was actually a daughter, and even an unfavored princess, the outcome would certainly be very dire. The princess is a woman, I am her royal brother, the brother who saved the older sister is also considered a hero," I said firmly. Deep Binnen looked at me for a long time, a smile sparkling in his eyes. Suddenly, he took a finger from my neck and slid it down to the hem of my shirt. At that time, I was extremely scared, but Deep Binnen's hand did not go into my collar but instead took it off for me. I don't know if it was an illusion or not. When he saw the red welt on my wrist, due to being tightened by the rope, his eyes clearly darkened. "You dare to take off the glare for me? Are you not afraid that I will kill you?" Hearing that, he turned around, took out a dagger, and personally brought it to my palm. "Come here, kill me." I immediately wanted to grab the dagger, but let alone kill someone, I couldn't even hold the hilt. Not only do I dare to untie you, I also want to keep you as a little slave by my side. As long as you don't take the antidote, it will make your limbs weak and you won't even be able to hold a spoon. Whatever I want to do, you cannot resist. When Deep Binnen said these words, he intentionally approached me, using his whole body's strength, but it was powerless. Face flushed. You are shy. What? Do you think I'm so hungry that I'll eat anything? I don't like men. Finally, Deep Binnen pushed both me and the dagger off the bed, lay down on the bed himself, and fell asleep. I tried several times but couldn't pick up the dagger. In the end, I could only let my whole body go limp, lean on the edge of the bed, sit down, and examine my chest. Luckily, it wasn't big, but fortunately the chest was tight enough. Otherwise, if you lean so closely, you will definitely be discovered by Deep Binnen. God Jiang will come to save me. I hugged my knees, remembering when I was a child in the palace, when I and royal sister Chutan Noyet stood together. God Kwang never looked at me. At that time, he was the prince's companion. He is better to me than the other royal brothers. I asked him why. He said because I was one of the queens who looked the most like Chutan Noyet. Later, in the military camp, I asked him if he saw me as his royal sister's replacement. Kwang then pinched my nose, saying that at that time it was just heartless words, telling me that I was narrow-minded. Small things from childhood can still be remembered for such a long time. He said that he and I had been through many life and death situations on the battlefield. He also knows my only secret, love. No one can come between us. On the battlefield, he did not hesitate to choose Sister Hong. I opened my eyes wide all night without sleeping, looking for his reason. At this time, he must have arranged things well for Sister Hong, right? Even in the barracks, looking for a military doctor to treat Sister Hong, one night is enough time. Tomorrow morning, he will probably send troops to save us, even if it's just to break into the enemy camp to investigate once. I know at least it's good that he wants to save me. Just like that, I stayed up all night waiting until dawn, but I couldn't wait for Kwang then to come and rescue me. I was not willing, so I waited another 3 days. These 3 days, I was detained in Deep Binnen's barracks. In addition to being physically weak and having to smell the strong scent of sandalwood every day, you also don't have to worry about eating or drinking. I have read books on trials and know that although being a hostage in an enemy country is humiliating, it is not to the point of not being able to eat enough or not be able to wear warm clothes. But very few of the hostages in the book were held next to the emperor, serving as slaves at the emperor's bedside. Every time I think about this, I feel lucky because my chest is flat and my voice is rough. As long as no one comes to strip me of my clothes, I can continue to pretend to be a prince through this pass. Deep Binnen, after giving me puree to disperse, was completely unguarded against me. So, while he was gone, I tried to explore and get out of the barracks. The soldiers in the army all treat me like air. I ran to the corner of the barracks and whistled with my finger. Kwang and I raised several thousand messenger pigeons in the military camp. These pigeons are scattered everywhere, flying in the sky over the border between the two countries. They are all trained by me and can obey my orders. Sure enough, as soon as the whistle ended, a pigeon landed on my hand, with an envelope tied to its leg. Kwang then indeed conveyed the news to me. I opened it and thought it was asking me to cooperate in escaping, but I didn't expect it to be. I heard that you were treated like a hostage in the enemy camp. It's better to take the opportunity to respond internally to our army. This time, Chutan Noyet is in danger. The emperor will definitely punish me. I need to create a great success to avoid punishment. Chu Duyan lures the enemy, infiltrates slowly, and plots. After the big event is accomplished, I will definitely ask the emperor to grant you marriage. Originally, he wanted me to continue to stay here to help him make amends. Waiting another 3 days, I heard that Kwang God was about to withdraw his troops to the capital. It was said that Princess Chutan Noyat could not stand the hardships at the border and insisted that Kwang God escort her back to the capital. I was in Deep Bin An's barracks and heard his general say that. So we're back in the capital, what's wrong? What about me? Hesitating for a moment, I opened the cabinet and took out the watch my mother gave me when I was 18 years old. This is also the only thing left after my family went bankrupt. When I walked into the hall with Lu Nuyen, I understood why she insisted on me going with her today. Because the moment I walked in, I immediately met a familiar look, Tamo So, my business partner and ex-wife. Lu Nuyen seems to have been waiting for this moment for a long time. The smile on her lips was full of mockery, her eyes looked at me as if waiting for a joke. What's wrong? Seeing your ex-lover makes you unable to walk anymore? Kogan, can you respect me a little? Tamoso also quickly noticed our presence. She held a glass of wine and walked in front of me, her voice calm but with a hint of familiarity. Kogan, long time no see. I nodded slightly in response. She looked at me intently, her eyes a little sad. Why is your pancreas like this? Is it because Lu Nuyen doesn't treat you well? If there's anything, just tell me, don't bear it alone. Tamoso's words of concern made Lu Nuyen's face immediately colder. She didn't say anything, just gently leaned on my shoulder, using force to pull me back as a move to assert her sovereignty. Mr. Shin, the situation is so serious that you can still get a divorce? Tamoso smiled and nodded, his tone was calm but contained something profound. That's right, Kogan and I are indeed not married. But we grew up together. I care for him like a sister cares for her brother. Is that okay? Lu Nuyen curled her lips, her eyes sharp. If you're divorced, it's better to be a stranger. Kogan, you don't need to worry. Tamoso smiled faintly, just old friends, asking about each other. Is General Lu so domineering that he even controls his husband's normal interactions? Lu Nuyen emphasized each word, her voice was not loud but strong enough. Of course I don't interfere with his friends. But with those who have impure intentions, I absolutely will not ignore them. After finishing speaking, she let go of my hand and approached Tamoso, her tone full of warning. Now that Kogan is my man, you'd better stay away for a bit. I don't want to become the subject of people's gossip. At that time, whether it's for you, for me, or for him, it won't be beneficial. Tamoso also refused to be outdone, took a sip of wine and gently replied, General Lu, why do you keep saying one thing and doing another? I've only been back home for 3 days and rumors of your love life have spread everywhere. You are already the focus of public opinion. At that moment, the large door was suddenly pushed open, all eyes turned to the entrance. A figure rushing in was Chudan. He was wearing a sports suit, completely out of place in the luxurious atmosphere of the party. His eyes scanned around and stopped on me. Without any hesitation, he strode straight forward. Before anyone could react, a strong punch hit me straight in the face. The space fell silent, everyone was stunned. Even I was surprised. Perhaps this was the first time they witnessed the scene. But I just touched my burning face and smiled bitterly. In any case, Chudan's punch, in the end, was only thanks to Lu Nuyen's support. Tamoso was the first to react. She immediately picked up the glass of wine, threw it over in anger, and shouted, Are you crazy? Lu Nuyen also regained his composure, quickly grabbed Chudan, and sadly helped him clean the wine stains on his body. Chudan felt angry, his voice carrying resentment. Yin Yin, you always say that you love me the most, so why didn't you let me go with you today? What are you inferior to, throwing that man away? Lu Nuyen's face immediately became unsightly, but she still tried to be patient. Her voice softened and coaxed. Didn't you say you haven't been feeling well lately? Besides, today's event requires him to accompany you, right? Hearing that, Chu then immediately got angry, pointed at me, and shouted loudly, I really don't understand. You obviously don't love him, so why do you have to marry him and not even get a divorce? Lu Nuyen's face became increasingly gloomy. Chu then continued, his voice filled with pain, promise me, okay? Divorce him immediately. I don't want to continue living in the dark, with people whispering behind my back anymore. It's clear that we are a truly loving couple. I am your man. I don't know what statement angered Lu Nuyen. She raised her hand and slapped him hard in the face. Chu then, I can give you anything you want, except the position on that marriage certificate. Shoshin was stunned by the slap and didn't react for a while. In the end, he looked at Lu Nuyen angrily, his voice full of pain. I just want a dignified reputation, what's wrong? Having said that, he grabbed Lu Nuyen's shirt, his voice choked. Yen Yen, if you don't need me, then what's the point of me living anymore? I'm sick, I'm about to die. His words caused a stir in the entire hall. Tamo So pulled me behind her, her voice cold. Lu Nuyen, is this what you call good for Kogan? Do you feel proud to let outsiders cause chaos to this extent? Lu Nuyen pursed her lips and said nothing. Tamo So smiled coldly and continued, at first, when I heard the news that you two were getting married, I was happy for Kogan. I'm happy because even though it took a big turn, in the end he still got what I wanted, but now I regret it. If I had known early on that he would have to live like this, I would not have agreed to a divorce anyway. Now I even hate myself, hate for pushing him into this fire pit. After speaking, she turned to me, her eyes serious and asked, Kogan, do you regret it yet? Is this woman worth your sacrifice? There's still time to turn around. As long as you nod, I'll immediately take you out of here. I smiled bitterly in my heart, feeling bitter. I shook my head gently, withdrawing my hand from hers. Tamo Chu, thank you, but now I have no choice but to make my own choice. Tamo So clearly looked disappointed and was about to say something, but at this moment Lu Nuyen stepped forward and pulled me. At that moment, Chu then suddenly rushed forward, but this time he no longer screamed, but clutched his stomach, leaning in pain on Lu Nuyen. In a weak voice, he said, Yen Yen, my stomach hurts. As soon as he finished speaking, he fainted. From that day on, Chu then obediently stayed at home to recuperate. Lu Nuyen was busy taking care of him and rarely came home. As for me, my insomnia is getting worse and worse, accompanied by other symptoms. Sometimes, there are even hallucinations. The whole person is always drowsy, without any strength. It wasn't until one morning, when I woke up and discovered my mouth was full of blood, that I was startled to realize that maybe I was in trouble. I quickly changed my clothes, took my keys and took a taxi to the hospital alone. The doctor held the test results, pushed up his glasses and looked at me with hesitant eyes. Are your family members with you? I shook my head and answered honestly, no one, but the doctor can tell me that no matter what the result is, I can accept it. I'm mentally prepared. She sighed and comforted, you are still young. As long as you cooperate with treatment, you still have a chance to recover. But the current situation cannot be delayed any longer. The best treatment option is to be hospitalized immediately. Surgery will be performed 2 months later, but this surgery has great risks and requires family members to sign and agree. Having finished speaking, she gave me the test results. I took the paper and walked out of the clinic. Only then did I realize my hands were shaking. Saying you're not afraid is a lie. I turned my head to look at the people around me. They all had relatives with them, couples, fathers, mothers, and I was alone. No one felt sorry for me. My parents are no more. Legally, my only relative at this time is Lu Nuyen. But I still haven't figured out how to tell her this. Vaguely walking out into the hall, I suddenly raised my head, just in time to see Lu Nuyen and Chu then entering the hospital. In their hands, they also carried medicine bags from the pharmacy counter. Our eyes met. Nuyen looked at me stunned. At this moment, the nurse standing nearby bowed respectfully to her. "General Lu, please follow me upstairs to do the VIP inspection." Nuyen nodded, turned and left. I retracted my gaze, scoffed at myself, and put the results in my pocket. I thought at least Nuyen would step forward and ask me a question about why I was here. But I didn't expect her to calmly pretend like she didn't see it. Then I shouldn't bother her anymore. I turned around to leave, but suddenly, from behind, Chu Than's voice rang out. "Ko gone." I suppressed the bitterness in my heart, turned around, and pretended I had just seen them. He took Lu Nuyen's arm and walked towards me. "Is it really you?" I smiled faintly. "If not me, then who? You just looked like you were about to die." I wasn't sure, so I tried calling. He looked gloating. "I can't believe it, just a few days without seeing you and you've already turned me into this." Lu Nuyen stood next to me silently observing me for a long time, then finally spoke. Her voice was still cold as ice. "Your face looks really bad. If you're sick, take medicine. Don't turn yourself into a person who's no longer a ghost. It's an eyesore." I smiled faintly, didn't answer, just turned around and walked away. Behind him, Chu then coldly snorted. "Ko gone, do you think you're so smart? Don't think I can't see through this little trick of yours. You knew we were coming to check today, so you deliberately chose this moment to act weak and pretend to meet us by chance, right?" He raised his eyebrows and continued to tease. "What a coincidence. I'm sick, you're sick too. I'm curious to see if you infected me. Even though it's just a joke, our diseases are different, there's no way they can be infected." Chu then continued to tease. "Don't think that pretending to be sick like this will make Nuyen pity you." I turned back to look at Chu then and said coldly. "Are you not confident in yourself or not confident in your girlfriend? It's just a chance meeting and you can infer so many things. It seems like her feelings for you are just that much." I glanced at Lu Nuyen meaningfully, then strode away, leaving Chu then so angry that he stomped on the spot. Having said the wrong thing, the secretary immediately looked at me shyly. I waved my hand to show it was okay, then followed the assistant into the reception room. 1 hour, 2 hours, then 3 hours passed, but Lu Nuyen still did not appear. I stood there, deciding to go find her myself. The employees in the company now know my identity, so no one stops me. I went straight into her office, pushed open the door and entered. I saw Chu then sitting next to me, feeding Nuyen strawberries. Seeing me, he had no intention of standing up and sneered, "Ko gone, I thought you were a smart person. Lu Nuyen hasn't come out to see you for so long, don't you understand? Why do you have to make everyone feel awkward like this?" At this moment I was not in the mood to argue with him, I just looked straight into Lu Nuyen's eyes. "I have something to tell you. Can I ask him to go out? I don't want to talk about my illness in front of Chu then." Otherwise, he would babble again, as if he was the only one seriously ill. Lu Nuyen clearly looked impatient and said coldly, "If you have something, say it directly, there's no need to hide it." I tightened my lips and firmly answered, "But this is my own matter. I don't want everyone to know." The room was silent for a few seconds. After that, Lu Nuyen looked at Chu then, who was looking gloomy. You go out first. Yan Yan, his tone was full of resentment, his face full of unwillingness. But Lu Nuyen didn't say anything, just warned him with her eyes. Having no other choice, Chu then angrily stood up and slowly walked towards the door. When he reached the door, he suddenly turned around. Kogan, my bag is still on the table, please help me get it. I glared at him, then went to the table to get my bag and gave it to him. I clearly saw Chu then, just as he was about to receive it, secretly withdrew his hand. In the blink of an eye, the briefcase fell to the ground, the contents flying out with a deafening sound. Chu then immediately squatted down in panic and said angrily, the perfume bottle I was about to give to Yan Yan broke. This was a birthday gift, I had to work very hard to get someone to buy it from France. After speaking, he turned to scold me, Kogan, I know you hate me, but why can't you directly confront me and keep playing petty tricks like this? Lu Nuyen walked over, looked at the broken perfume bottle on the ground, then pulled Chu then up and comforted him, it's okay, it's just a bottle of perfume. But Chu then refused to listen and continued to scream, that was a gift I worked hard to buy, but he broke it on purpose. Kogan, today you must apologize to me in front of everyone. I calmly replied, it was you who pulled your hand back, not me. Hearing that, Lu Nuyen continued to complain for a while, but Chu then still stubbornly wanted me to apologize. Lu Nuyen gently patted his back, don't be angry anymore, anger is not good for your health. But who would have thought that after hearing this sentence, Chu then became even more crazy, he ruined my things, I just need an apology. Isn't it worth it? Lu Nuyen's face turned serious, Kogan, apologize to Chu then. I stared at her. Lu Nuyen, I broke it just now, he broke it himself. You saw clearly, right? Lu Nuyen avoided my eyes, then turned away and repeated again, please apologize to Chu then. Why do you have to lower yourself like that? She soon had nothing but hatred for me. Looking at this scene, I suddenly burst out laughing. Lu Nuyen right now, you make me feel so strange. Hearing that, she looked intently, as if wanting to see through my thoughts, then coldly said, it's all given to you. I curled my lips and laughed coldly, let's divorce. As soon as he finished speaking, even Chu then, who had been screaming loudly for a while, immediately fell silent. I know that only you have the right to make this request. But after all this time of torturing me like this, are you really happy? I will find a way to pay you back. It was my mistake, I was confused when faced with this relationship. From now on, we will go our separate ways and never see each other again. Perhaps this is the only path I can choose right now. Having finished speaking, I looked at Chu then sarcastically, do you really want your little lover to remain just a third person until death? But unexpectedly, Lu Nuyen suddenly got excited and pushed me down on the sofa. His eyes were full of anger, you want to get rid of me? There's no such thing as that easy. You want to divorce me? Don't ruin your life, don't think I don't know that Tamoso was right. As soon as she returned, you immediately wanted to dump me. How can I give you satisfaction? What about status? Don't worry. I don't care about status. What I care about is just wanting to see you, Kogan, suffer and regret for betraying me. I was pinned tightly on the sofa by Lu Nuyen, my mind spinning and unable to move. Feeling suffocated, I tried to push her away but couldn't. My mind gradually went blank, I couldn't even remember how I got home. Staying home alone for nearly 2 months, I often fainted and had nosebleeds many times. I fell to the floor. No one found out. After a while, he woke up dimly, struggled to get up, and looked for medicine to take. I can clearly feel my body getting worse and worse. That day, Tamo so suddenly came to visit me. When I opened the door and saw her, I was a bit surprised. And she looked at me with a pale, exhausted expression. The original smile immediately disappeared, replaced by worry. Kogan, what just happened? I tried to force a smile, just a little sick. She didn't believe it. You go to the hospital with me now. After saying that, she pulled me away. I used all my strength to hold her tightly, shaking my head. I don't want to go to the hospital. Kogan, you can't play around with your health like that. Tamoso shouted loudly. Since we've known each other, this is the first time I've seen her so angry. I can't argue. She was confused and gradually lost consciousness, collapsing right before Tamoso's eyes. Before I closed my eyes, the last thing I saw was her worried, panicked face, constantly calling my name. After that, I didn't know anything anymore. When I opened my eyes again, I was in the hospital. The doctor who examined me last time was standing with Tamoso. Both of their faces were very bad. Maybe she already knows my health condition. Seeing me wake up, Tamoso immediately walked quickly to the bed and reached out to touch my forehead. I worriedly asked, Kogan, how do you feel now? I nodded slightly, much better. Her eyes were full of pain. It's such a big deal, why didn't you tell me? If I hadn't come to find you, how long would you have planned to hide it from me? I chuckled softly. I've bothered you too much. I can't continue causing trouble anymore. What nonsense are you talking about? She frowned and looked at me seriously. I just want to ask you one question. The doctor said a few months ago that you must go to the hospital for surgery as soon as possible. Why don't you still do it? Is it because you don't have enough money, or is there another reason? I don't know how to answer. Immediately, Tamoso understood everything and angrily punched the cabinet next to him. Lu Nuyen is truly not human. She stood up, planning to leave. I'll go find her now. I quickly pulled her back. Lu Nuyen doesn't know that I'm sick. If I don't say anything, it might be better. Hearing that, Tamoso's face became even more ugly. In front of the doctor, she couldn't control herself and cursed loudly, damn. My husband is so seriously ill and she is completely unaware. Is she still human? Kogan, don't tell me she's still living with that lover, okay? I avoided her questioning eyes and smiled bitterly. If you want surgery, you need a relative's signature. As you know, my parents passed away a long time ago. It's not that I haven't tried. I've been looking for her, but there are always all kinds of obstacles that keep me from opening my mouth. Maybe I owed her in my previous life, so in this life I have to repay it with my life. The doctor told me, your illness is not too late. Just cooperate with the treatment, there is still hope. I shook my head. Tamoso, you don't understand. Living now is more miserable than dying. If things still come to this end, I can accept it. Kogan, are you still a man? How can you live and die for a wretched woman like that? You left her first, but wasn't it because you didn't want to drag her through the mud? You absolutely don't owe her anything. I just smiled slightly, did not refute, but moved on to other things. Seeing that I didn't want to say more, Tamoso could only sigh helplessly. My body was already very weak, and after just a few conversations, I felt exhausted. Quickly, I fell asleep. This time I slept for 2 days straight. When I woke up again, I was awakened by the noise outside the door. I tried to open my eyes, but unexpectedly I heard Lu Nuyen's voice. She was banging on the hospital room door, constantly calling my name. In front of the door, Tamoso arranged 2 bodyguards. They stopped her and wouldn't let her in. This is my husband, you guys get out of the way. Lu Nuyen shouted loudly. I tried to sit up and ring the bell. The bodyguard outside heard the movement and immediately opened the door and told me, "Lu Nuyen is making noise outside the door, saying he wants to see you." I nodded. "Let her in." The bodyguard quickly gave way and the door opened. Lu Nuyen quickly ran in, wearing only a thin shirt. Her hair was messy, completely different from her usual neat image. It can be seen that when she went out, she was in a hurry. Lu Nuyen held my hand, her eyes were dark with fatigue. "Why didn't you tell me?" I withdrew my hand from hers and turned away. "I really want to say it. The first time I found out I was sick, as soon as I saw you and Chu then go for a health checkup, I held my test results and felt very uncomfortable. I wanted to tell you, but you said I had dilated eyes. The second time I called you, I didn't stop just wanting to ask you to help me with a small matter, but my number was soon blocked by you. The third time I went to your company to talk directly, but because of a bottle of perfume I didn't do it, broken, you forced me to apologize to Chu then. Then I understood. You just hate me. You refuse to let me go just because you want to torture me. You will be happy, right?" It's been a long time since I called Lu Nuyen like that. But when he said it, it felt extremely natural. The atmosphere froze. She gently approached me, her voice hoarse. "Kogan, it was me who was wrong. It's all my fault. Tamo So has told me everything. That year, the reason why you broke up with me to marry her, I know the whole truth. Can you forgive me? I was selfish, I was childish." Lu Nuyen's voice choked. "I didn't know your family had encountered such a big problem. I really didn't know. After I fell into a coma, Tamo So barged into Lu Nuyen's company and scolded her in front of everyone. Tamo So told me. Said that you never liked her. She agreed to divorce you just to be successful for you. It's my fault, Kogan. You must get well again, okay? I will contact the best doctor to operate on you. In the future, I won't do things that hurt you anymore. When you recover, I will take you on a trip around the world. We still have a lot of things we haven't done yet together, each other." I quietly looked at Lu Nuyen, regretfully saying many things, but there was no emotion in my heart. "Lu Nuyen, I'm tired." I interrupted her. She stopped, her white hands touched my face and said gently, "Then you rest first. I will stay here with you." I shook my head. "You go out." Lu Nuyen looked at me in panic. I looked at her and asked softly, "Have you ever heard the saying? Love that comes late is not as good as weeds on the side of the road?" Lu Nuyen's face immediately turned pale. The day she forced me to get married, I was actually very happy. I thought God was merciful and wanted to compensate me a little in the end. But unexpectedly, what God gave me was a gift that pushed me into the abyss. I wanted to talk clearly with you and clear up any misunderstandings. But she never gave me that chance. If I could go back to that day, I will definitely choose the first path you suggest. Because maybe if I choose that path, I still have a chance to live now. Lu Nuyen, I have come to this point largely thanks to her efforts. Now she stands in front of me, pretending to be regretful, pretending to be in love. Do you think it works? Also, I hope you always remember this, the death of this late Gan is partly your credit. This is the last time we meet. Even though I don't have much longer to live, in the last days of my life I don't want to see this face that makes me hate it anymore. So, please grant my last wish before I die. From now on, stay away from me, okay? Having finished speaking, I pressed the emergency public button next to the hospital bed. The bodyguard immediately walked in. "I'm sorry, guys, take Mr. Lu out. From now on, don't let her come in here again." As soon as these words came out, I clearly saw her body tremble. Lu Nuyen refused to leave. In the end, he was dragged out by the bodyguards. When I reached the door, I suddenly called her back. She thought I had thought things through and happily turned her head to look at me. "Kogan, tell me. As long as you want, I will definitely help you do it. My funeral, I hope you won't show up." The light in Lu Nuyen's eyes immediately disappeared. From that day, I no longer heard Lu's voice like Yen's. But I know, every day she stands outside the hospital room door. Later, when Tamoso came to visit me, she sighed. "I really don't understand you. When people hate you, you cling to them and don't let go. Now people want to make up for it, but you refuse to see them." I smiled faintly. Maybe because I'm a coward. If I don't give her a chance now, maybe she will always remember me for the rest of her life. Tamoso was silent for a long time, then said, "Do you want to go somewhere?" I looked at her, nodded slightly. "I know my time is running out. In the last days, I didn't want to stay in the hospital." Tamoso looked at me, pretending not to understand, but finally nodded in agreement. The next day, when Lu Nuyen went downstairs to answer the phone call, Tamoso took me out of the hospital. Later, Tamoso recounted, after knowing that I was sick, Lu Nuyen immediately broke up with Chuthan. Chuthan could not bear the shock and threatened that if they broke up, he would commit suicide. Unexpectedly, Lu Nuyen was completely unconcerned and immediately told his assistant to take him to the rooftop. Chuthan did not expect Lu like Yen to be so unsympathetic. Angry, he rushed out and was unfortunately hit by a car in the middle of the street. His legs were seriously injured. When he was taken to the hospital, he was unconscious. The doctor said the legs had to be amputated. A sports athlete lost his legs, causing his spirit to completely collapse. In the blink of an eye, Lu Nuyen knew the news, only leaving him 5 million and a separation agreement, and never visited him even once. "She has always been such a loving person," I commented calmly. As soon as he finished speaking, the doorbell downstairs rang again. Tamoso gave me a glass of water. "She's here again. Still don't want to see her?" I smiled faintly and shook my head. Tamoso looked at me helplessly and sighed. 2 weeks later, I passed away. Even though it was banned, Lu Nuyen still appeared at my funeral, standing quietly outside the crowd. After that, she began to indulge in alcohol, day after day immersing herself in drunkenness. Finally, one day, she drank herself to the point of unconsciousness, fell onto the empty villa floor, her head hit the corner of the table, and blood flowed out. In a trance, Lu Nuyen suddenly remembered me. That day, I also fainted alone in an empty house with no one around, blood flowing down and obscuring my vision. She burst out laughing. "Kogan, I came to find you. Can you forgive me?"